Reproduction in flowering plants, and the two objectives we're going to learn today, they are to identify the structure and function of different parts of a flower, and to differentiate between two types of flowering plants, monocot and dicot. Okay? So let's just do a quick review of what we did in the last class. My first question is, what are flowering plants, and how do you define a flowering plant? Or in other words, how will you define an angiosperm? How will you define an angiosperm? This is from your prior knowledge. We did that in the class. Yes, raise your hands. Yes, Cynthia. Fruit in the tree, yes. So what comes before the fruit? Pollination, but what is the structure that comes before flower, right? So what my question was, what are angiosperms? So the answer is, angiosperms are flowering plants. That's correct. I think you got the right answer now. So flowering plants are also known as angiosperms. Okay? Now how do you classify flowering plant? There are two types of flowering plants. Remember we did that? Yes, Alexis?
Is it the monocot and dicot?
Monocot and dicot. That's correct. Monocot and dicot. Monocot, as the word say, monocot means one, and dicot means two. Now what does this COT cot means? Monocot and dicot. To do with the first, okay. Let me explain you. So, flowering plants are of two types, monocot and dicot. That's good that you remember that. Monocot is typically when there is one seed leaf. When the seed is germinating, there's only one leaf that comes out of it. And that is why they're called monocots. And there are some specialized characteristics of monocots. Like they have parallel leaf venations. I will show it to you when we will do this. And also they have when they flower, when you see a flower of monocot, you will see there are multiples of 3. So that's very typical. If you look at the flower, you can say it's a monocot or a dicot. If you look at the leaves, you can say it's a monocot or a dicot. And dicot, those kidney beans, when you germinate a kidney bean, you will see that the first two leaves are the two quarter-length leaves that come out. That is the name. That is why we have the name called dicot. Okay? So now we know. So the flowering plants are of two types, monocot and dicot. But we will be going over it. We'll try to dissect the flower first and see what parts it has, and then we will understand their functions, and then we will move on to the objective 2 for monocot and dicot. Okay? So every group has one flower. There's a hibiscus flower in every group, and there's a dissecting paper. There's a dissecting sheet that is a handout that I have given you. This is what it looks like. There's a handout in every group, and please look at the flower. Cooperatively you can work in groups, and look at the flower please, and see the flower. This is a hibiscus flower. Now this one is, my question is, it consists of parts for sexual reproduction. It's a specialized structure. I also want to make one more point, that the flowering plants are most evolved. Okay, the most evolved in plant kingdom, because this is a specialized structure which the non-flowering plants do not have. Now we come to another question before we start the dissection. My question is, what are some examples of non-flowering plants? Non-flowering plants. I'm just asking you to think. And yes, Josh. Trees, which ones which are not flowering? I mean, there are plants which are flowering plants, and there are some plants which are not flowering. You can just think about in a community, if you remember anything that is There are trees, yeah, there are some trees which are non-flowering, but think about, give me some specific example. Yes.
Pine tree.
Pine trees, yes. Pine trees are also known as gymnosperms. This is one of the example of a gymnosperm where they have their cone bearing, but they do not have a flower or they do not have a specialized structure that is a flower. Another example of non-flowering, yes.
Palm tree.
Palm trees have flower. Palm trees have fruits, right? They are which type of fruits? Can you give me an example of a palm tree having a bearing fruits? You know, coconut tree. Yeah. So this is when you see a fruit on a tree, that means they are flowering plants. So fruit eventually, it's coming from the flower. So basically the ovary of the flower becomes the fruit. So that is a flowering plant. But that was good. Good answer, but you have to understand the difference between flowering and non-flowering. Can you think of any other? Let me give you other examples. Ferns and mosses. Okay, ferns and mosses are also in plant kingdom, but they are not flowering. All right, let's start with the dissection now, please. We are going from outward in. The outer, there are 4 whorls. Okay, there are 4 whorls or modified leaves in the flower. The outer one is the sepal. The outer one is the sepals, and the outer green one. Just look at the green one, which is the outer. These 2 outer whorls, not the tiny one. The larger green is the sepal. So please take one sepal and place it where it says sepal on your dissecting hand up. And write down the function of sepal as, protection of developing flower. Protection of developing flower. Does it make sense? Does it make sense? So, it is the outermost and it helps to protect the developing flower. So please everyone look at the flower on the dissecting sheet, write down sepal and the sepal function as protecting the flowering plant, the developing flower. Now we go to the next one, and that is the colored petal. The second modified leaf, outward in. We are looking at the petal, and please see on your sheet there is a petal. Make sure you remove it and place it where it says petal. Where does it say petal? Okay. So remove one of them. You can remove it gently and place it where it says petal. Now what is the function of petal? I'm asking you to think and tell me. Raise your hands. Yes, Natalie. For attraction. Of pollination, and if the flower is typically very colored and big in size, so what type of pollinators are being attracted? Yes. Insects, and so you can say animal pollinators, right? As compared to the wind pollination, so animals will be attracted, or the insects will be attracted to the colored petals. So that is one reason they are colored and big in size. So pollination occurs. Of course, that is one way to bring the pollinators close to the flower. Okay. So, is everyone done with the sepal and the petal? So, you please make sure you write down the function. Good. So, you can remove one by one all the petals and the sepals gently, so that you're exposing the third, which is the innermost whorl of the flower. You can gently remove the petals so that you're exposing the pistil, or you can say the female part, which is I would like you to pay attention here, please, students. When you are looking at the innermost whorl, it has 3 parts. Ovary at the bottom, this style, and there is stigma at the top. So there are three parts to the female structure. There is ovary, style, and stigma. In this case, you can see there are stamen, which are male parts, which are around the middle of the, the little top upper part of the style. I would like you to please hold the flower one by one and identify what I just said. Please, in your group, you can identify what is the flower what is the flower, female parts. So, John, you got that ovary?
Yeah.
And which is the style? What is the
style? In the middle, and then at the top there's
stigma.
stigma.
All right, and please also make sure you identify these structures, just stamen.
Yeah, stigma.
Right. So you can write down their functions one by one. We'll start. I'll make sure everyone does that and think about the function of each part. We're starting with the female first. So look at the three: ovary, style, and stigma. Right? Oh, you understand that? Ovary, style, and stigma. These are the three parts of a pistil. Or there's another pistil is another name for female parts. Okay. So what is this one now? Sorry, this one. Stigma, style, and ovary. And these are the anthers are, yes. Anther is part of the male or female? Male part, right? So these are filaments, anther, and the pollen grains inside the anther. So they are stamen around the style. So they are bisexual. They are both sexes are found in the same flower. Now I would like you to remove every part and place it on the dissecting handout. I want to make sure everyone is able to identify the three parts of the female structure: ovary, style, and stigma. And these are the male structures, which are known as the stamen. And you can just remove them and place them. Let's go to their functions now. Let's go to their functions. Now when we're talking about the male parts and the female parts, again, male parts will be stamen. And stamen has further there's three parts to it, which are filament, which is a thread-like. It's like very, not very clear, but then there are yellow structures, anther, and the anther has the pollen grains, and the male gametes are the pollen grains. Okay, so you found that everything? Did you place it? Now, why do you think pollination occurs? Why is pollination important? That is our question at this point. Yes, I want you to think and tell me, why do you think pollination is important in a flower? Yes, Anne?
Fertilize
the ovary. Okay, very good. Once it fertilizes the ovary, it will become, once the fertilization takes place. So pollination is important for fertilization, and then once the ovary is fertilized, it will be becoming, what is the next stage? Can you speak clearly? The fruit. Very good. I think that's a correct answer. So the fertilized ovary, when it ripens and everything is, every other part of the modified leaves is sheds off, and the ovary becomes the fruit. So all these fruit, can you give me some examples of fruits which are fruits? Of course, they're edible. There are some fruits which are botanically fruit, but you don't even think that they're fruit, they are vegetables. Yes, give me some examples. Coconut, yes. Apples, oranges, cantaloupe, watermelon, all these are fruits coming from the fertilized ovary. Tomatoes and other cucumbers, we don't call them fruit, but they are also technically or botanically they are fruits. Even jalapenos, they are fruits, right? Jalapenos are fruits. Why? Because they are flowers and they are fertilized, and it's a fruit. So that's the botanical terminology we use for fruits. Okay, good. Next, let's just move on to the. So we have all the four worlds, and you have the functions. Anther is the one in the male. In the stamen, you have filament, which is holding the anther. If you have not written the function, please write this down. Filament holds the anther, and anther will hold the pollen grains. So we are completing our dissecting handout here, so that we have all the functions. Make sure we have all the four parts of the flower and their functions. So like this anther, and the pollen grains will be here, filament is here, and stigma, style, ovary, petal, sepal, and the function. Good. I think that's good. We can move on now. We'll go to our next objective, and that is how to differentiate between monocots and dicots. We did talk about monocots and dicots in the beginning, and I told you, monocot will mean starting from the first seed leaf, that is monocot or monocotyledon. The cotyledon is like the first leaf, and dicot will be having two cotyledons. So I would like you to show you this chart, which will help understand more on the objective 2, which is how are flowering plants classified as monocot, dicot, and monocot. Now, as I told you, these are kidney beans and chickpeas. When you soak them in water, and you can see it after a couple of hours that you can easily split them open into two. That indicates what? They're opening into two, like what is a dicot or a monocot? It's a two means dicot. So it's very easy to identify a dicot seed. This is an example of a monocot seed here, which is rice, corn. Can you give me another example which does not open? Just by looking at the seeds, you can say this is monocot, and which will not split open into two grains, like wheat and rice, corn. All these are monocots, and all these grasses are monocot also, because there's another indication. So you can easily identify by looking at the flower. It's monocot or dicot. You can look at the leaf, say monocot or dicot. I'll give you an example how you know the seed. By seed you can say monocot or dicot just by looking at the seeds. One, it's opening up in two. The other way to measure, just to find out monocot or dicot, is looking at this. Now tell me, this group is, if you see the veins under the sun, under any light, if you see there's a network, that will be dicot. And if you see their veins are parallel, you can see their veins are parallel. The veins means the vascular tissue, the veins in the leaf, they're running parallel. So this is an example of a lily plant, and this is a monocot leaf. You can see this, you can see the veins, and you can easily differentiate between monocot and dicot. Let me show you the monocot also. The monocot. So this is my question. Which type of, this is a palm leaf from a palm tree. What do you think is monocot or dicot? Raise your hands. Monocot. Why? A little bit louder.
It's a single leaf.
Single leaf, and
That's the parallel.
parallel venation, right? So is that clear? It's parallel venation, and that is why it is. So there are different things you can identify how monocot and dicot plants can be differentiated and classified. Let's do a self-assessment. I would like you to have every student will get one sheet for this small lesson that we did today. You have, let me pass this out. There are 4 questions in this, and I will read the questions and ask you if you have any, if you don't understand anything, let me know. I just want you to let me know if there's any, if you need any clarification on the questions, and then I'll give you a few minutes to answer the questions. Okay, I'll start now. I'm reading the question. And I will just wait for a few seconds. If you have any questions or clarification, raise your hand, okay? Question number 1, what are angiosperms? How are they classified? Give an example of each. Any questions on this? Any, you don't understand it? Let me know. Question number 2, how does pollination occur in plants? How does pollination occur in plants? Question number 3, what self-pollination, what location of stamen and carpel will be suitable in a flower? Do you understand this question number 3? Let me explain you. The question is on self-pollination. So in self-pollination means the pollen grains will come from the same flowers. Okay? In self-pollination, I'm explaining question number 3. It says self-pollination, what location of stamen and carpel will be suitable for flower? So in self-pollination, the pollination will be from the same flower. So what location, the stigma should be higher up or stigma should be below the anther. So that's what you have to figure out or tell in the answer, okay? And same thing for cross-pollination, what location of stamen and pistil is suitable for cross-pollination? Either stigma should be below the anther or above the anther. Last question, number 5 is give 2 characteristics of monocot and dicot plants and give one example of each. So please complete the self-assessment questions, and then we will, then I'll take your papers to evaluate. This is monocot, yeah. The parallel venation, yeah. This is some student work on flowering plants and dissection of a hibiscus flower.